Hello and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. Today I want to talk about the arrest of David Menzies. Now, David Menzies is a reporter with an outfit called Rebel News. If you're not familiar with Rebel News, they're controversial. The quality of their journalism has been criticized. They've been called alt-right. There's lots of people who don't like Rebel News as an outfit. We'll talk about that a little later. David Menzies himself is a controversial figure. He's had past arrests. He's had removals from various events, both conservative and not. And he could be described as a bit of a muckraker. He likes to get in people's faces and ask questions and sort of stir the pot. So he himself is also a controversial figure. But let's have a look at this arrest, because what happens is he goes up and he wants to speak to Chrystia Freeland, who is the Deputy Prime Minister. And in the course of that, he ends up getting arrested, which, because he's a reporter, is all caught on camera. So let's have a look. And this is via Rebel News themselves, so I'm going to link the video in the description below. Check it out if you want to see the full thing. I'm not going to show all of the video here.
Ms. Freeland, how come the IRGC is not a terrorist group? Why is your government supporting Islamo-Nationalism? What? Excuse me. What are you doing?
You're under arrest for assault.
What, sir?
Why are you pushing me? You're under arrest for assault.
Who are you?
You're under arrest for assault.
Police. Police, you're under arrest for assault. How am I under arrest? You bumped into me.
You pushed into me.
You bumped. I was just scrubbing. I got my credentials here, and you just bumped into me. So excuse
Police, you're under arrest.
me. What is your name and your badge?
So if you're sitting here going, wait a minute, I didn't see an assault and all of that, you're probably like most people, because a lot of people watched this one and went, wait, what? Myself included. But let's talk a little bit about the definition of assault, because that seems like it's going to be a little bit relevant here. So, and it's important to, whenever we look at legal issues and legal things, to look at what the actual tests are. So here we have assault. A person commits an assault when, without the consent of another person, he applies force intentionally to that other person, directly or indirectly. Now, force doesn't have to be a lot of force. It can be a little bit. You know, flicking somebody with your finger could be an assault. And force directly or indirectly, if you throw something at somebody, that can be an assault. So that is sort of the first aspects. Defenses would be consent, lack of intention, and, you know, those sorts of things. There's other ways to commit assault here. One that I'll raise because some people on Twitter were challenging me over this one was he attempts or threatens by an act or a gesture to apply force to another person if he has or cause that other person to believe on reasonable grounds that he has present ability to effect his purpose. Now, the classic way you commit assault in this fashion is if, for instance, you draw your fist back like you're about to punch somebody, and even if you don't punch them, you've already assaulted them. Another way that you might get assaulted in this fashion is if somebody comes up and, for instance, they hold up a knife to you and they say, you know, and they make sort of a threatening gesture with it. That might be an assault as well. So this is what we're talking about here. Now, in this case, we're going to go back and we're going to watch it a little more slowly, just so that we can see, because I don't see what the officer seems to be seeing here, but we can have a look. So I'm going to slow it all the way down to, 1/4 speed here, and we're just going to watch this sort of alleged assault moment here. All right, let's go. So here we go. We're just going to mute this because that's going to sound awful. So you see he's up. Now she's clearly not assaulted here. He's not, there's no threat, there's no implication that he's going to apply force to her. He's just putting a camera in her face. This is actually a lawful interaction. You might not like it, you might think he's a jerk, but this part is lawful. There's no question about that. Now he's going, you can see he's sort of, and this guy gets in his way. And I just want to go back here. You see the officer's arm. We're just going to go back here. So he's sort of looking ahead, but not off to the side here. And you see the officer's arm come up and brush into him here. I don't think that Mr. Menzies committed an assault in this. I don't see that he intended to apply force. What the officer is claiming is that Mr. Menzies intended to apply force to him by pushing past him. Now, if this was an assault, it would be the dumbest assault ever. This would be like so minimal, but I don't even see the so minimal here. And then they proceed to arrest him. Now, the reason why it matters as to whether or not there was an assault here is because the police are only justified in using force to effect that arrest if, in fact, they have reasonable grounds for the arrest here. And I didn't see it. But let's see what happens right afterwards here. We'll just unmute again.
Why are you pushing me? You're under arrest for assault.
Now that's clear force, right? That is clearly the application of force. So this officer, if he's not effecting a valid arrest, he doesn't have the authority to do that, which would mean that this would be a much clearer assault against Mr. Menzies, and in fact would be fairly serious. Nobody's going to worry too much about an assault by pushing past somebody on a crowded sidewalk, but grabbing somebody and slamming them into a wall, that seems like an assault to me. So, now you might be wondering what happens in the aftermath of this. Well, they put Mr. Menzies in cuffs. People have said, oh, he wasn't really arrested. Well, the officer tells him he's under arrest, and they put him in cuffs, and they take him away. That's an arrest. There is no question here. Sometimes you can get into like some fuzzy issues as to whether or not somebody was really arrested or not, or was really detained or not. This is clear. There is no legal debate over him having been arrested. And he's taken and he's later released without charges. They don't charge him for this. Now, I'm just going to say the reason why they're not charging him is almost certainly not out of any particular liking of Mr. Menzies. I don't think he's on their Christmas card list. I don't think they're cutting him any favors here. So what it seems to me is that the most likely thing is that they didn't charge him because they recognize that they've got no basis for a charge. I don't see a basis for it here. This one has got people outraged because lots of people have looked at this, and in particular, I'm just going to say it's not just like, hey, this is me looking at this and saying that this is a concern, because I'm going to note that I'm seeing concern raised from active and former law enforcement, and law enforcement tends to be fairly reluctant to criticize other law enforcement, but I'm seeing lots of people, and not just people who are sort of like active commentators, but people who are like, as a police officer, I don't like this at all. But I'm also seeing a lot of people who are normally very much on the side of like the Liberal Party, or at least who are very much critical of Rebel News. One comment that I saw on Twitter from a young person in the legal profession was, I hate that the RCMP is making me defend Rebel News / David Menzies. I've seen comments from defense lawyers saying basically like, yeah, we hate this guy, Mr. Menzies, but this is a bad arrest. This is terrible. So I want to address some of the comments and some of the criticisms that I've seen going around. One is people say Rebel News is a terrible organization. Doesn't matter. People say David Menzies is a terrible person. Okay, I don't care, at least not for the purpose of this analysis, because even terrible people have rights. And even if he's been arrested before, even if he's had various other issues before, that doesn't mean that this particular interaction is okay. And if you don't stand up for rights just because you don't like the person, well, everybody is disliked by somebody, right? And eventually you're going to get a government that doesn't like you. So think really hard before that's the approach you want to take on something. I think that that is a terrible way to approach this. People have said Rebel News and Mr. Menzies are not real journalists. Well, I'm just going to say there's no such thing as a real journalist. There is no special status in Canadian law for journalist. It's just you're a person doing reporting. So if you go out and want to ask a question of, Chrystia Freeland or Pierre Poilievre, if you saw him on the street, all of those, things, you have the same status. Now, there might be private facilities that might have their own special policies as to who they approve and who they don't. You might not get a press pass to go into this big concert if you're not with, some news organization. But in terms of this interaction, it's completely irrelevant as to whether or not he's working for, a reputable organization or a disreputable organization or no organization at all. This has nothing to do with his status as a journalist. And so any attacks saying, oh, he's not a real journalist are completely off base. It doesn't matter. Because they could, if this is allowed, then they can do this to you for just about any reason or no reason. So all of the criticisms that attack Rebel News or Mr. Menzies, you can have your opinions about those people and those organizations, but they're not relevant to the validity of this arrest. And once you start supporting bad arrests or bad conduct, keep in mind it will be used against somebody you like eventually. Stand firm, have principles about these things. If you see protesters that you disagree with who are being mistreated, that's not a good thing. That's still a bad thing. So I think this one is pretty egregious. Right now, Rebel News is looking to raise money to file a lawsuit. I'm not sending them any money because Rebel News has more than enough and they got more than I do. So, but you can if you want. I'm not linking that directly. I've linked the video. You can find that out if you want. I think they got a really good chance of winning. Now, some of the issues that they're suing for are bad. One of the issues that they've said that they want to sue over is malicious prosecution. I don't think that one's going to fly because the charges were never laid, so he hasn't actually been prosecuted. But false arrest, assault, those kinds of things, those look like good claims to me. If this were, if Mr. Menzies were a client and were charged with the assault, the officer later tries to charge him with assault peace officer, which is obviously never going to fly because that guy's not in a uniform and he never identifies himself as police. I just don't see how that'd fly. But I would not expect to see a client convicted. I would be telling a client, yeah, fight the heck out of this because we're virtually certain to win. And there's never perfectly certain in the legal system. That's not how it works. But yeah, so a lot of people wanted my thoughts on this one. My thoughts can be summed up as this is a terrible arrest. This should never have happened. And they should be issuing apologies real fast. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you found this one to be interesting or educational. Please like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to see more content. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters at the $50 level, Canada's National Firearms Association, the CCFR, Lembus for the Elf, and the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. And at the $20 level, Lindsay Metcalf, Larry Kalniak, Kyle Fox, Drunk All of the Baileys, Cameron Johnson, Andrew Elsich, Vicky, and Dorky Dane. Thank you as well to my $10 supporters who will be in the crawl immediately following. Thank you for watching. Hope this has armed you with knowledge. See you next time.